start now. So, welcome to our final episode of the Unavailable Father series. And as we come to an end, I am here to share my story with you guys. So, I'm sure you've noticed that we brought different people on this platform and they shared their stories, and I was truly inspired by that. So at first I was like, can I share my story or not? But then I was like, you know what, these people really inspired me, and because of that, I have decided to come and share my story with you guys. And then I'll just say a few points on how someone can cope with having an unavailable father. So, okay, here it goes. Okay, I'm a bit nervous, so you have to forgive me because, well, it took a lot of strength and courage for me to just come here and just share my story. So, so we've been talking about unavailable fathers, right? And, well, for me, my father was unavailable in the sense that he was emotionally unavailable. So financially, he was supportive and all, but emotionally and socially, he was unavailable. And in this case, he falls under the category of an unreliable father in the sense that he was emotionally unavailable. So for me, growing up with my dad, I didn't really understand, most of the things, like why he would probably act the way he would act. And until I had to go for therapy, that's when I was told that, well, he was that way because of the nature of his job. So my dad was in the army, and you know how people in the army are. And I think because of his rank, whenever he would come home, he would just act like he's at work. And I was afraid of him. Like growing up, I was afraid of my dad because for him, if he asks you to do something, there are no negotiations. Even if you're tired, even if you don't want to do it, there are no negotiations. You just have to do it. So it's like if he says do this, then you'll be like, okay, how high, boss? So I think that affected me a lot because I was young and I was the last one. And for me, sometimes I would not be in a position maybe to do some of the things he was asking me to do, and I would get frustrated because for him there were no negotiations. Like you just have to do it. And for him, when he's talking, he had, this authority. His voice would have this authority in it, And for him, instructions, there would be like a command. And when you're young, it's like, okay, now I'm afraid of this guy. I don't even know what to do, right? And even if you do like a small mistake, you'd get a beating for that. So for me, I thought my dad never loved me because I didn't really understand that all this was coming from the nature of his job, and maybe because also of how he grew up as well. So he probably didn't really know like how to extend love. He had his own way of showing his love, but for me it came as if he didn't love me or he didn't care about me. So I remember when I was young, I would cry a lot and I would ask God, like, why would you give me a father like that? Why do I have a father like that who doesn't even love me? He doesn't even care about me. But that was my own thinking because I didn't understand. Obviously he was in the army, so I don't know, but for those who have dads from the army, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. So for this one time, like I'm just going to give an example. So, for me, this one time, for me personally, I don't like sleeping in the dark. Like, for some reason, I don't like sleeping in the dark and I'm afraid of the dark. And for him, he would never understand that I was afraid of the dark. So whenever I would sleep with the light on, he would complain about it and shout and yell, right? And for me, I felt like it was unfair that he would do that. So I remember I would not sleep most of the times. Like I would sleep around 4 a.m. Like when the sun is about to rise, that's when I would sleep around that time because I couldn't say that I'm afraid of sleeping in the dark, because if you say that, then you probably get a beating. Like, why are you afraid of sleeping in the dark? And then you get a beating for that, you know. Or sometimes if you cry in front of him, you get a beating for crying. Like, why are you crying? You're not supposed to be crying. So for me, it was very difficult, right? So growing up now, because of that, I grew up with, I built a wall because, whenever my dad would yell or scold me, I would feel helpless because I couldn't express myself fully. Like, I couldn't tell him that, I'm not happy with this, or maybe I did this because of this. So I didn't have that chance to express myself fully. So every time he would yell or he would give an instruction which came as a command, I would, it affected me a lot, that I ended up, building up a wall around me. I think it made me think that being vulnerable is a weakness. So for me, I would never want people to see me vulnerable, because I thought that they'd see as if I am weak. And me being vulnerable also made me feel helpless, and then it would remind me of my dad and all. So I built this wall around me, and I would never let people in, especially guys. I would never let them in, right? It's like I put this wall around me, and people failed to understand me, and I think some of them still failed to understand me. It's like they don't. Okay, someone is like, okay, I'm talking to this girl, but I don't really understand whether she likes me or not. It's because I kind of build a shield, and I don't want to let people in, and I feel like not wanting to let people in pushes people away. So just growing up, I would push people away, I push guys away. And when it comes to, relationships, I ended up growing up with attachment issues, right? And these attachment issues, they came with fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. So for me, if I'm in a relationship, if I see that, okay, now this person probably is acting like he doesn't like me anymore, I would run before he tells me that, I can't do this anymore. I would run first before the person leaves me first, right? And because of attachment issues, I find it very difficult to let go of things, not just with people, but even with objects. Like, I don't know, I struggle with that. I'm trying to learn I'm actually working on that right now, but I actually struggle, with just losing things. Even a pen, like a small pen, I actually struggle. I find it very difficult to concentrate if I don't find that pen, or even if I lose something like studs or earrings, I find it very difficult to concentrate until I find that thing. It's like I have to look for that thing. I have to find that thing. And I feel like it also comes from the fact that I grew up, right, feeling like I'm not receiving that love. I'm not getting that love from my dad. So once I get something, it's like I develop this attachment for that thing. And when I lose it, it's very difficult to let go. So it's the same with relationships as well. And that's one of the reasons why I would run first before the person leaves me. And I think at some point I found it very difficult to say no. If someone comes, even a friend, if they come and say, let's go out, let's go and do this, but I don't feel like going, I found it very difficult for me to say no. So most of the times I would lie, and maybe if a person comes and say, let's go to a party, and I don't want to go because I don't want to disappoint them, I would say, you know what, I'm sick, I'm not feeling well. So I developed, that people pleasing thing, attribute, where you just have to make sure that you're pleasing everyone so that you don't disappoint them and they don't leave you. So I would end up lying, and say, I'm sick, I can't go out with you. And I would find it very hard to tell the truth and just say, you know what, I can't just go. So with this, okay, I had to work on this, and I managed to overcome this problem of not being able to say no. Maybe you can say I wasn't assertive. And I had to work on that. So I went for therapy, right? I went for therapy the first time. That's when I was told that you need to understand the nature of your father's job. If you understand that, then you won't have any issues. right? And then I had to go, that was when I was in India, I had to go for therapy as well. And I remember my therapist said that I, I've always been, doing things like to please people, or, to keep that picture of, like I'm someone who is strong, someone who is focused. And I'm sure a lot of my friends, they understand this, because they would always tell me that you're focused, you're strong and all. But truth is, I wasn't strong, I wasn't focused, but it was just a cover up, because I didn't want people to see that I also make mistakes, and that I also fail, and that it's not all the time when I'm focused. And also I had that. So my therapist had to point that, and she had to say, you know what, Rumbi, you have to let your guard down. You have to just allow yourself to be vulnerable with people. Just be open. Don't just shut yourself in and try and please people, forgetting about yourself. So she told me that, and I was like, okay, fine. So I got in a relationship that time, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to let my guard down. I'm just going to be open, and I'm not going to try and push this person away. So when I did that, I didn't realize that, all my flaws and problems, they're going to, surface. They're going to show, because it was more like, okay, I'm letting the wall down, and then everything is exposed. So we had issues, we had problems. And like I said, because my dad used to yell and shout at me, it really affected me a lot, to the point that I don't appreciate someone scolding me or shouting at me. I don't like it. So if a person does that, it's either I retaliate, or if I feel like someone is trying to control me, I retaliate, or I it's like, no, you can't do this, or you can't talk to me like this, all this kind of stuff. Or even if it's an argument, for me, I cannot take it, so I'll just leave and go. So all these things started coming up, they started showing up in this relationship, because I decided to let my guard down, and I decided, to remove that wall and everything. So during that process, I then realized that, I had to work on myself more. I realized that I still hadn't healed. So for me, it's like, okay, I was aware of my problems. I was aware that I have fear of abandonment, I have fear of rejection. I have this people-pleasing trait, and I don't like being yelled at, or someone scolding me. I don't like that. So I was aware of all those things, but I didn't know how to deal with them. I didn't know how to solve them or implement them. And I remember this one time my therapist was like, can you just list 10 things that you love about yourself? I couldn't even list 10 things. And she was, okay, fine, list 10 things that you're proud of. I couldn't even list 10 things, you guys. I think I couldn't even reach up to 5, right? And she had to tell me herself those 10 things. She knew me, so she told me, all those things. And I was like, okay, how is it that I can't even see those things? So in a way, I guess I had low self-esteem in a way, or I didn't really appreciate the things I did, and the things I was doing. So I always thought that, okay, I have to be on point every single time, right? And I think most of it comes from the fact that I felt like if I work very hard, then I would, get my dad's attention. And I also felt like, I have to be this perfect daughter. I have to be this, I have to be good in whatever I do, to make my father proud, to make my parents proud. And I felt like it came from the fact I didn't receive that love. And I felt like for me to be loved, or to receive that love, then I have to make my father proud. I have to make him happy, so that he tells me all those things. So that was my thinking. So after yeah, after the therapy thing and the relationship thing, that's when I realized that I had to work on myself more, because it's like almost everything was exposed. So the relationship had to end because, well, you know, he was dealing with someone who has problems, who has father issues. So sometimes you would never understand why I would do certain things. And so, yeah, the relationship had to end. And I realized that, you know what, I had to work on myself. I had to make sure that I deal with these things. And I think it's part of the reason why we started this series, the Unavailable for the series, because I felt like I can help other people, identify, things they experience, like identify the issues and their problems so that they can find help. Because it might look like it's nothing, but it's actually something. And you may find that a lot of people actually going through the same things that I went through. And for them, they don't know how to deal with it. Well, I remember I had a couple of people who came, on this platform, and a lot of people girls, they talked about how they would want to date older guys because they wanted to fill in that gap of not having a father. Well, for me, I didn't have that, but I had that thing that, I don't trust men, and men, they'll just disappoint you and they'll just leave you. So like I said, for me, I would run before it even happens. And so it was also like that was the main reason, like, why we had to do, this Unavailable for the series, so that people could come and share their stories. And I'm actually happy that I had quite a number of people who came and they shared their stories, and they really inspired me to come and share my story as well. And most of the times when people would talk about how they were affected, I would just laugh to myself, and you know what, I was once like this. I used to do these things as well, because it affected me a lot. So this is my story, how I overcame this. Well, I went for therapy, but I didn't finish most of my therapy sessions. But with me, I think I did like a lot of self-introspection. Like, I was honest with myself. Like, I would sit down and say, okay, where do you have a problem, Rumbi? Okay, this is where you're lacking. This is where you have a problem. Okay, then what can I do for me to work on that? So I did a lot of self-introspection, and that helped me also to work on myself. And it was hard, it was difficult, just acknowledging that you have a problem is very difficult. But I told myself that I had to do this to make myself, better. And another thing also is, I think along the way, I started meeting a lot of people with father issues. So me helping them, in a way, I was kind of helping myself as well. And I remember this one time I was praying, and the Lord told me that you need to learn to receive love, because growing up not receiving that, I found it very difficult to receive love just from people. And that was another reason why I started pushing. I pushed people away a lot. I feel like I still kind of do it, because okay, if the Lord had to point it out, then it means I still do it. I still push people away. So the Lord had to point out, and he was like, you know what, my daughter, you have never received love, and you find it very difficult to receive love. So you receiving love from people, not just men, but even my friends, anyone, just receiving love from people, I struggle a lot, and I tend to push people away because of that. And because of that as well, because I have never received love, I just think that, being vulnerable with someone, or just being open, and, just being emotional, and for me, I felt like, okay, like it's a weakness. People are not supposed to see, my weakness, but I was wrong. And him pointing all that I had to learn to receive love, well, it really touched me a lot. It really moved me. But at some point, I was happy that he had to point out all that I have to learn to receive love. And if I can't receive love, then it's definitely going to be very difficult for me to receive love from anyone else. So if I can't receive love from him, then it's very difficult for me to receive love from other people as well. So that's another thing. I got to realize recently, that I struggle to receive love from people. For me, I feel like if I'm receiving love from someone, then I have to do something in return. Yet it's not always like that, where you're receiving love and you have to return something, like you have to do something for that love you're getting. You just have to receive that love and just accept it as it is. So that was another thing I got to learn. So basically that was me, and I would encourage people to, just find someone to talk to. Just know you're not alone. There are a lot of us. It's just that people are not open about it and they don't talk about it, right? And most of the people, when they hear unavailable father, they think that he's physically not present, but it's not like that. He can be unavailable emotionally, socially, even physically. So that's another thing that you need to pay attention to. And so my encouragement is find someone to talk to, sit down, identify, do some self-introspection. And when you do it, be honest. Don't lie to yourself. It's you, so you can tell yourself the truth. Even if it hurts, tell yourself the truth and find ways in which you can deal with it. And I think because of that, I want to create a community of people with unavailable fathers. So I think after this live, maybe tomorrow or Sunday, I'm not really sure, but I am going to post like an ad about this community where we can just come together, we can just communicate, we can just share our stories, and strengthen each other and help each other. So if you want to join, this unavailable for the community that I want to create, then you're free to. I'll definitely drop a WhatsApp link where I'm going to create a WhatsApp group so that we can, just connect and share our stories and help each other. I think you feel better knowing that there's someone who went through what you're experiencing and they actually overcame it. So just having people around and people together is a good way of healing as well. And I promised you that I was going to talk about ways in which one can cope. So because of time, I'm still going to talk, but I'm just going to point out the points and not really explain a lot. So the first point is you need to understand what really happened to you as a child, right? So it's like what happened to you as a child, or you may remember the feelings that you had that time, but you don't really have the steps of what actually happened. So it's important that you understand what really happened to you as a child. You also need to check why you became shy, or why you became depressed, or why you became anxious, or why maybe you had loss of confidence or low self-esteem. So if you have the courage, for some people, you can actually go and talk to your dad about it. Talk to him about what happened in the past and all. Well, for me, I still haven't got the courage, the guts to sit down with him, talk about it and all. But if you have the courage, then you can actually talk to your dad about it. Try to find someone who can help you do that. For those who do not have their fathers, then you can ask your parents, your mom, meant to say your mom. You can ask your mom about it, so that you understand, what really happened to you as a child and growing up. And then another point is get a good picture to how you reacted to your father's unavailability. Well, most of us, we've reacted differently, but you may find that some of the things are common, they're the same, but they're slightly different. So you need to get a good picture to how you reacted to your father's unavailability, right? And you can ask your mom how you were well adjusted or how you were distressed about what happened. It will help you recall and remember. When you remember what happened to you and how it affected you, it's easier for you to find ways to heal. So that's another thing that you can do. Or you can ask your siblings as well. Ask them how they were affected by the unavailability of your father. When you ask them, you can observe and assess, and see where you stand. And then another point is you need to figure out the attitudes and behaviors you carried into adulthood, right? So, for example, I was talking about people pleasing, I was talking about fear of abandonment, I was talking about attachment issues. You need to, check all those things, look for those things, so that you know what you have to work on, you know what you have to remove and what you have to add. That's another important factor. And then another point is you need to identify how these behaviors have limited you in the past and may still be limiting you, may still be limiting your happiness, right? So I remember I had a guest last time who said when her dad left, she lost all her confidence because she got that confidence from her dad, and losing that confidence limited her in so many areas, right? So it's the same with people pleasing, right? You want people to like you, so you please them. You end up not doing what you want, you end up doing what they want, which is not good. So it's like now you're being limited. You don't have that freedom to do what you want to do, right? And it's the same with fear of abandonment. Because you're afraid of being abandoned, you end up ruining beautiful things or beautiful relationships simply because you're afraid of being abandoned. So it's very important that you look at those things and find what limited you when you were a child and still is limiting you now. And then another factor is, after you have identified all those things, you need to find new attitudes and new behavior that expand your possibilities for happiness. So once you find this, I know it's not easy. Just saying it now probably sounds easy, but it's not easy. It's obviously going to take a while. It's obviously going to take time. But once you do it, you find yourself on the right side. You find yourself better. And I think it helps you heal from the trauma that you experienced growing up. So you need to replace, so it's like you're removing the ineffective ones and replacing them with the new ones, the new attitudes and behaviors. And then the last point is you need to find someone to talk to. If you have to go for therapy, then go for therapy. I once had someone who had father issues, and for her, she thought that his story was silly. So I was like, try me. What you probably think is silly might not be silly, so just try. So you may find that when you're looking for someone to talk to, find someone who understands you, because you might go to someone and then you'll be like, my dad did this and it affected me, and then they'll be like, are you crazy? Like, that's really nothing, you're just overreacting or you're just being sensitive. So you need to find someone who really understands where you're coming from and where you're standing. So when you find someone to talk to, find someone who really understands you and someone who is neutral and who is non-judgmental, who is not going to judge you. So you might want to go for therapy because those people are professionally trained therapists, and they trained obviously not to judge but to remain neutral. If you have maybe your pastor at church and you know that he will not judge you and you understand you, then go and talk to him. If you have a friend and you feel like they understand you and they were not going to say you're overreacting or you're being sensitive, then you can talk to them. But what's important is finding someone to talk to. So this is the main reason why I actually want to to create this community. I want to help a lot of people who went through what I went through. And I also want to help a lot of people, those people who never came on this platform and shared their stories. They still have a chance to share their story with other people who are actually in the same situation as theirs. So that's the main reason why I want to create this community. And for those who are watching, you probably have an unavailable father, or you have father issues, or you probably know a friend who has father issues, or you probably know a friend who knows a friend who has father issues. Just like put the word out there that, Revolved Generation, in partnership with me, they're going to create that community to help people. And just one thing that you can know, we'll be having Zoom sessions where we can just come together. We share our stories. We help each other deal with our problems. And we'll do activities together. And, this community is for you to find a family, to just find, people that you can say, okay, I found a family, people that I can just talk to and, help me deal with my issues. So this is the end of our Unavailable Father series, and I would like to thank everyone who has joined this live and all those people who watched our episodes. I would like to thank you guys for joining in, and I hope that you were helped, and I hope that a lot of people are still going to be helped. If you have someone that you know, encourage them to watch our videos. We have a YouTube channel, Revolved Generation, and all the lives that I've done, they're there on our YouTube channel. And if you know anyone who probably needs someone to talk to, tell them to DM us or DM me. My Facebook page is Rumbidzai Ngandini, and my Instagram page, Rumbidzai Ngandini. Tell them to DM the Revolve Generation. We have an Instagram page as well where they can send a message, or they can send a message to Memory Ngandini. They can send a message to her on her Facebook page or on her Instagram page. But I really appreciate you guys, and I really appreciate everyone who managed to join our lives. Shout out to Memory and Delight and Tafanzwa, who are always there supporting. So thank you very much, you guys, and I really appreciate. I hope you will be helped by my story. So enjoy the rest of your evening.